Last December, Potsdam's Congregation Bethel celebrated its 36th annual food festival, welcoming all to join in celebrating and sampling the rich food traditions of the North Country's Jewish community. The congregation itself was established in the 1950s when a local group acquired the synagogue building, and it continued to grow and to serve as a center for the Jewish community over the following years. In 1977, one of the people to join that community was Judith Glasser. When she and her husband moved to Potsdam, Judith brought with her the idea of turning the congregation's annual rummage sale fundraiser into a food festival. She volunteered as lead organizer, and the festival was soon established, with many congregation members cooking an array of family favorites and others helping to bring in special breads and pastries from a kosher bakery in Montreal.
We had soup, we had blintzes, we had kugel, we had stuffed cabbage, and some other typical things. And it was deemed a success, and it grew from there.
Judith also volunteered that first year to make blintzes, sharing her own family recipe. 37 years later, she's still making over 300 blintzes each year for the event. And she's far from alone in her efforts. As longtime fellow organizer Susan Mezebov said, "This is truly a community event. Everyone comes out, whether to cook, help serve, or just to warm up their bellies with some hot matzo ball soup on a chilly day." While food is served downstairs, an expanded gift shop bustles upstairs. At the shop, congregation members can pick up otherwise hard-to-find items for the upcoming Hanukkah holiday, whether they're looking for menorah candles or a dreidel for their kids to play with. And while it's adults running the kitchen, there are plenty of kids around as well, helping out and learning more about their own traditions along the way. Susan explains that for kids in the community, it means a lot to get to take part in this event.
The kids see, they like the fact that these are foods they're familiar with, for the most part, and this is theirs.
But of course, much of the delight of that connection to one's own tradition is the joy of sharing it with others. As Bethel President Sharon Williams says of the festival,
"It was a way to open the door without proselytizing, just say here we are and we're welcoming and we're sort of a part of this bigger picture of the North Country." So it's a way, and I think even now, it's a way to bring people in and just sort of just a community event.
When John Scarlett thinks of his blacksmithing roots, an early memory comes to mind.
At about age 7, we moved to a house, and the front porch was being torn off. So there were a lot of bent nails around. I spent a lot of time straightening nails so I could build my own fort, and which I did. I couldn't wait to get up in the morning to saw wood and hammer nails.
Having worked with his hands since he was a small child, John came to the North Country and to blacksmithing in the 1970s and has been making beautiful things in hammered iron ever since. When he was 28, he and his wife Liz moved to Rossie, intending, like many others at that time, to live more simply off the land. In the process, as John put it,
something needed to be done. I had to figure out how to do it.
And figure it out he did. John was soon building his own log house and working his first team of oxen.
Had a huge garden and got pigs and chickens, and a friend of ours showed up about this time with a lactating goat, walked up the driveway and said, "Here, a present." And so for 15 years we milked goats. And one year we had 110 baby pigs born, and it was all we could do to feed them, let alone make any money.
Soon, though, John would start to make a living as a blacksmith. He began to learn the trade in earnest from a new friend and skilled blacksmith, Ken Schwartz. He then went to the John C. Campbell Folk School and took a life-changing class from expert blacksmith Tom Joyce. After that, he continued to hone his craft through workshops and folk schools and through his own work. As he puts it,
I learn every time I go in the shop. I learn every time I see someone else smithing. I learn every time I teach.
While John, like all good artists and teachers, continues to be devoted to learning, there's no question that he is a master of his craft. John's work has long been appreciated here in the North Country and beyond. For a time, he made reproduction 18th century thumb latch door handles for colonial Williamsburg. He also worked with the Adirondack Museum for 20 years, demonstrating smithing and making pieces for their educational department. Mostly, though, John focuses on commissioned pieces, working out of his little tree forge at his home in Rossie. He is known in particular for making exquisite fire screens that depict the flora and fauna of the local and regional landscape that he knows and loves so well. In doing custom work, John works to suit the site architecture and environment, while also leaving room for his own incredible creativity and innovation. As he says,
I try to have a story.
And as he tailors his designs to the interests and environments of those who commission his work, he does tell all kinds of beautiful stories in iron. Stories of fish and frogs, pickerel weed and pitcher plants and paper making, stories of the North Country landscape and the people who live and work in it. And each of those pieces tells his own story, too, of how that boy straightening nails came to be a master craftsman and respected member of a regional and national community of blacksmiths. While John came to smithing later in life, he connects with this long-standing North Country tradition through his devotion to person-to-person learning and time-tested methods, skills, and tools. He's also committed to sharing his own knowledge of the art in a way that can only be done in person, one smith to another.
I've learned a lot from other smiths, and I'd like to pay it forward. Plus, it's important if good work is going to continue that we have young people coming into this, and they need to be taught. Mm-hmm. It's not something you can learn from a book very well, so that's important to me.
Connie Miller, who moved to the Lowville area around 2009, says that when she found the Lowville Fish and Game Club, she found her home.
From our first visit to this club, we were welcomed into a community, and that's what keeps us coming back. It's not the trap, it's not all the other activities, it's the sense of community.
The club has been providing that sense of community, along with a range of activities and resources, since at least 1921, when a group of sportsmen who'd been working as informal game wardens and conservation officers in the area bought the 100 or so acres of land on which it now sits. Today, the club has about 260 members, including many families whose membership spans generations. Over the years, the club has carried out a range of activities, from fish stocking and tree reseeding to baseball games, mill picnics, and regular clam bakes. As the club's historian Charmaine Campany put it, in those times, the only thing bigger than the Fish and Game Club was the Lewis County Fair. More recently, into the 80s, the club sponsored snowmobile races at the nearby fairgrounds. While some of these activities have gone by the wayside, others have continued to be important ongoing events, whether it's getting together on Friday nights to play cards in the winter or gathering at the end of the summer for a barn dance with the Adirondack Playboys, a local family band. But of course, the main events center around the community's hunting and fishing traditions. The club offers options from hunter safety courses to a pistol range where local law enforcement do their qualifications, and a 3D archery trail through the woods, a big favorite with kids in the community. And they've kept especially busy lately offering weekly trap shoots, where 5 members line up on the range to shoot clay birds, 25 chances at a time. Here, Les Hoppel stands in front of the 25-shot wall. It's a tradition within the tradition to shoot up a club member's hat when he or she hits all 25 targets in one shoot. Club members meet regularly for trap shoots and to participate in league competitions, and this activity has also brought in a lot of younger club members. Club President Faye Furch explained that it's especially meaningful to the club to have the chance to share the knowledge, activity, and camaraderie of the group with younger members of the community. And there's so much of value to pass on, whether it's the skills themselves, the connection to the outdoors, or the sense of community that ties one member to her own deep roots in the area and makes another, though a newcomer, instantly feel right at home.
That's probably, for me, the biggest reason that we're here, is to carry on that tradition and make sure that it's here, especially, again, in this area, when that's pretty much all people know is hunting and fishing and that type of activity. We need to make sure it stays. Hopefully we can be a part of it.
Folklorist Lynn Ekfelt didn't start writing about North Country foodways until she was near retiring from her 28-year career at the St. Lawrence University Library. She'd been steeped in her own family food traditions, though, for as long as she could remember.
Food was really important in my family. My grandmother loved to cook, my mother loved to cook, and we would have picnics, and we would have family dinners and favorite recipes. And so one of my favorite things is my recipe file, because it has all my little cards. My 3x5 cards are all in my grandmother's handwriting, my mother's handwriting, my aunt's handwriting, my great aunt's handwriting.
Yeah.
And that's really neat to me, to have recipes that have been handed down in the family.
Lynn's interest in these kinds of traditions took on a new meaning when, in the midst of her time as a librarian, she got her master's in folklore at Indiana University and then went on to do extensive work documenting North Country food traditions. This work began in the late 90s when her friend and TAUNY's founder, Verrick Chittenden, invited her to help with a cookbook about North Country food traditions. Over the next couple years, Lynn collected an array of recipes and stories to put that cookbook together, and it soon won a National Community Cookbook Award. From there, Lynn continued to travel, taste, and share the tales of her adventures in a regular column for Voices, the Journal of New York Folklore. Over the next few years, she and her husband Nils went on many adventures, checking out everything from the Thousand Islands traditional shore dinner to the Naples grape pie, from bullhead feeds to beef on weck. She also continued to work with TAUNY, focusing not only on foodways but also on folk art, as when she curated exhibits on log cabin quilts or the intricate miniature furniture made by Benny Arnold of Croghan. Lynn not only raised awareness about North Country traditions, she also put those traditions right on our plates through her work organizing a committee to make food for TAUNY events.
We did that for a number of years, and that was fun. Did a lot of planning of special events and trying to match the food with the event and that sort of thing.
Lynn said that one of her favorite projects was coming up with foods that had stories of good fortune connected to them, for when TAUNY was hoping to move into the space here on Main Street. One of our greatest fortunes, though, here at TAUNY is the opportunity to share with such generous and creative people as Lynn in the important work of documenting and showcasing our region's rich traditions.